Now through 2 weeks, there are a few teams that are 0-2, and I wanted to go through the whole list of teams to declare whether they can turn it around or are they doomed for this season. Starting off with the Baltimore Ravens, they have come close against a couple of AFC West opponents this year, and I thought that they played really competitive football, but they just couldn't make the plays at the end to get a victory in either game. Short term, their offense does look a little choppy. They're still trying to navigate how King Henry fits into the whole scheme, but I do like what I've seen through 2 weeks, but the schedule shortly does get a little tricky. They have Dallas on the road, they're home against the Bills, and then they have a week 5 matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. And like I said, after 2 weeks, I didn't have either Cincinnati nor Baltimore 0-2 and at the bottom of their division, but this is where we are right now. If I were to think about how Baltimore can turn it around, I think absolutely they can, but they've already costed them some significant playoff seeding in 2 weeks of struggling out of the gate, but I do think there's still a chance for them to turn this thing around. To the Cincinnati Bengals, I think this is a team that can also turn things around. Again, it comes down to the quarterback. Joe Burrow is a superstar. He just needs an offensive line that's going to hold up, and he does have Jamar Chase. Whether or not he's disgruntled or not, he's still on the field. He still commands a DB's attention, a defensive coordinator's attention, and he's definitely a guy that can go off at any given time. Now, T. Higgins is also going to come back. The only thing I worry about, like I said, is can Chase Brown be the running back for the Cincinnati Bengals? Because I think they need another guy, because right now I'm not seeing a lot of running opportunity, running lanes, running production from this running back room for the Bengals. But this is a team that can compete. Once they get into the dance, it's just a matter of how they get into the dance. Can Joe Burrow stay healthy for 16 to 17 games? Can the O-line hold up, protect Joe Burrow to get it out to his talented receivers? And then can they get into the dance and maybe have a matchup against the Chiefs, who they've played really well historically? The Tennessee Titans come into this week 3 with 2 losses, very close losses, but a lot of this can be attributed to Will Levis. Now, we didn't think that the Titans had a lot of expectations coming this year. It's mainly seeing how Will Levis is able to navigate as the starting quarterback for this franchise. And after week 1's terrible interception where he panicked and flipped the ball out, returned for the go-ahead pick 6, the same mistakes happened again, costing his team a valuable 3 points in a very close game with the New York Jets. On 3rd and goal, he's basically sacked and basically gives up the ball on a backward pass to a running back that's not really ready to receive the pass, and it's a really selfish play, because I think in his head there's some fraction to him that thinks, oh, if I lateral this back and he doesn't pick this up, that fumble's going to go to him, not me. Well, the stats guy had him wrong right there, because he was still charged for the fumble on the backward pass. So Will Levis thought he could finagle the stats guys, but failed at that mightily. It comes down to decision making. We know he has the rocket arm, and so he says, and so we've seen on his pro day, but we still haven't seen him put together a consistent set of tape that I think that they need to really figure out. Do they have somebody here at quarterback? Because Coach Callahan has been there to nurture and develop Will Levis, and they've surrounded him with some talent. He has Hopkins, he has Calvin Ridley and Tony Pollard as a running back. Those are some notable weapons for this Titans team, but it's a matter of putting this together. And in the short term, looking at their schedule, they face the Dolphins, who could be without Tua, most likely they will be, and the Colts, who are winless but also playing pretty well, and the Buffalo Bills, who I think are already looking pretty good after 2 weeks. So unless Tennessee gets some real steps forwards with Levis, they are going to be right back where they started in this upcoming NFL draft. The Jacksonville Jaguars are a team that has a talented quarterback and somewhat of a quarterback whisperer, and after somehow stumbling into the 2022 AFC South title, which they won that division and won a playoff game, very nearly took Mahomes and the Chiefs, beating them in the divisional round. They've had a follow-up season to a late season collapse, didn't get into the playoffs, and now already started off 0-2. It's safe to say that the honeymoon phase in Jacksonville is over, and we have to see now, can Trevor Lawrence live up to these expectations? He's been one of these generational type of talents with Clemson coming into Jacksonville. We haven't seen that type of production even post Urban Meyer. We know that the rookie campaign is something to completely throw away, but I'm still seeing these fumbles, these missed throws that since entering the NFL as a pro, he's been consistently doing, and something we didn't see surrounded by a really talented group of guys in his days in Clemson. So that is something that Doug Peterson is going to have to coach out of Trevor Lawrence. And frankly, the offense isn't what it used to be a couple of years ago. Yes, in week 2, they were without Evan Ingram, who's a big piece in their offense, but they still have Brian Thomas and Christian Kirk. And Christian Kirk ended up with 1 catch for -1 yard. Think about that for a second. But I think that this team really has to find its identity offensively, and they better really pick up their act because they face the Buffalo Bills coming up, and they're going to face a lot of stiff competition going forward, especially with division leader Houston coming to town in a couple weeks. So if they don't get their act together, they could be looking at 0-4 to start off their 2024 season. The Denver Broncos are a team that tried to retool, and they literally paid Russell Wilson $38 million to go. They said, get out. Here's $38 million. The Steelers scooped him up on a veteran's minimum, and even after that, he still hasn't played a single snap officially for the Steelers, as he's been going through a calf injury. Justin Fields stepped into his place, and the Steelers are 2-0 despite all the issues up front at quarterback. Now, with Bo Nix and the Broncos, Sean Payton said that they got their guy in this past April's draft, and since Bo Nix had a pretty decent preseason, but the NFL is completely different once the games actually matter in the regular season. And first game, I thought Bo Nix has a lot of tools and nice parts of his game, but it still comes down to decision making, and there's a lot of things that he's going to have to really learn to weed out going forward if he wants to maintain this starting position in this league, because against week 2, against again a very tough defense in Pittsburgh, I thought he was still very lackluster. 2 bad interceptions, not really accurate, and it comes back to Sean Payton, who is an offensive guru, but since Drew Brees is up and left, and even in the time that Drew Brees wasn't healthy, the Saints didn't look that great, the Broncos didn't look that great, so it is a lot of things that they have to approach, and I'm going to think that they won't be able to turn it around into anything of real success for the Denver Broncos this year in 2024. The New York Giants, they have found a way to lose a game despite throwing 3 touchdowns and holding their opponent to field goals. How does that happen? When your head coach notices your kicker is hurt going into the week, does not make a move to sign another kicker, and goes with said hurt kicker that aggravates injury on the kickoff and then fails to make the first extra point attempt. Basically, playing the game without a kicker is very detrimental to your team, and that came back to bite the Giants in the worst way possible. After a really bad week 1 performance, I really was hard on Daniel Jones, and I thought that was valid. Well, in week 2, I thought he played pretty well. 2 touchdowns, a clean game, and Malik Neighbors is what was advertised coming into this draft. I thought he was really good. Take out that drop, obviously not ideal. That was a flat out drop. That was a very good pass by Daniel Jones, right on the numbers. That's a drop by Malik Neighbors. But again, he is a rookie, and there's a lot of potential that I'm already seeing out of Malik Neighbors. But again, you score 3 touchdowns. Your defense basically keeps your opponent out of the end zone for the whole game, but you still find a way to lose. And whether it's Daniel Jones, whether it's the GM, whether it's Brian Dable, the Giants can't seem to get out of their own way. So I'm definitely declaring them done after an 0-2 start. Carolina, done, cooked. There is absolutely no way they're getting out of this 0-2 hole. It's over for them. The LA Rams are also 0-2, and I think this is another team that has suffered a lot of injuries like I talked about. And with Matthew Stafford being so old and the offensive line looking patchwork as it is, it's going to be very tough sledding without his top two receivers in a very competitive division. I just think that this team is already cooked, and they've had a lot of hopes and expectations coming into this year, but due to the mass array of injuries across both sides of football, I'm definitely thinking that the LA Rams won't be able to turn this around.